Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. I am not Eva, but I am one of the members of the Participation and Partnership Department at Tennis Canada. My home role is Director of Safe Sport and Integrity, but we are a small but mighty team. And we are, we've had some reflections, kind of me stepping in and working through some other things around how connected our team is and the ability to share the great work that we're doing because we work collaboratively across everything that we do. So this is really important to me as well from a personal note because I've been at Tennis Canada for a year and a half. And before that, I've worked in community sport. I've worked at the provincial level. I've worked at the national level, as well as in government and within post-secondary. And one thing that is critical for all of you to think about in this room is the role you play in really getting us out of those silos. We talk about it all the time, but I know when I worked at Humber College in the sport and sport business management programs, we made a real effort because of the nature of the college system to make those connections within our communities, but we didn't have the skills and the expertise to develop the research to back it up. Right? And so we all have these roles to play. And when we work together, as you can see through a number of initiatives that are presented, we have the power to do more with the little resources that we have. So I want to show you one quick, oh, look, I have slides. I want to show you one quick snapshot of some of the work that we're doing to enhance these partnerships. So when we look at this partnership, we really are looking at developing unique and non-traditional partnerships and applying the role of research into supporting the work that we're doing and responding to what we see the research-based needs in the communities are. So I want to take you back to August 10th, 2022. And for those of you who are with us, this was our inaugural Unmatched conference. So our Unmatched conference is part of our gender advancement and gender equity strategy, which is backed by National Bank. So we have a strong partner and financial resources to support this advancement. As part of that, we were really looking at taking what we know about gender equity and how to have those research-based informed conversations. We really had the opportunity through this conference to create space to advance these conversations into real actions and calls to actions. One of the partners within this conference was Leanne Nicole, and some of you know her because she has an extensive background in sport, but she was coming to us to really examine the grassroots perspective of engagement with sport and partnerships and really digging into that perspective. Upon reflection of her experience at the conference, she said to Eva, look, what we're doing here is only scraping the surface. We're talking about those who have access. And we talked about this earlier in the research presentations earlier today. We're talking about those who have access. What about those who can't even fathom accessing sport? They don't know how. They don't have the confidence. They don't have the ability. They don't have someone guiding that way. Fun fact, she's the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters Toronto. She's like, I've got an avenue for you. I have the data to back up the health outcomes of what we're doing through our Big Brothers Big Sisters Toronto interventions. We're well researched, we're proven, but we don't have the access to the funding that we need. Eva responds, this is great. We have access to funding. We have strategic initiatives to grow our sport. There's a connection here. And she brought it back to our team, and it was championed by Terry Tamalini and Allison Anderson, two people on our participation team. When we look at this, we had to come to this with some data. We have great partners doing this research in the industry. So we knew that 75% of parents thought that organized sports need to be more financially accessible. 44% say they can't afford to register their child in an organized sport. 60% of youth in Ontario without access to sport report deteriorating mental health, compared with 40% of those who play sport. 24.1% of Ontario youth report sport engagement is limited by lack of social ties and contacts. 23% of youth who participate in sport have a strong sense of community compared to only 7% of youth who do not participate. Sport can be that catalyst to sustain community and belonging. So we dug deeper. And here's what we learned about Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So first and foremost, for those of you who don't know about Big Brothers and Big Sisters as an organization, they really are designed to provide mentorship opportunities. They want to mentor relationships between adults and youth to help youth overcome and deal with life's adversity. Their goal is to develop resilient young people who will overcome life's adversities. Give every child a chance to reach their full potential. Think about this. What does sport do? We know this, connecting the dots. So what we learned about Big Brothers and Big Sisters is they have littles and bigs. So littles are those mentees, bigs are those mentors. They're volunteers that come in and they're partnered with a little and they provide them ongoing mentorship through activities and connections, okay? So 50-50, pretty much 48-51 female split, one self-described gender identities. The bigs, about the same breakdown. 67% of the littles families have a household income of under $50,000. 42% of the littles families have household income under $30,000. 62% are single caregiver households, and 10% live in subsidized housing. We can make a real impact here. How are we going to do this? What can we do? So we deepened our conversation and we realized there was opportunities here. First of all, we have existing programs and leaders that we can just utilize to make a difference in these communities. So we have turnkey relationships. We can make this something that can be replicated. We can look at this. We can remove barriers to drive participation and awareness. One of the things for us is we have a strategic objective to advance tennis, to remove barriers, to destigmatize this perception that tennis is an elitist sport. They need access to activities to facilitate those mentorships. We have the opportunity for us to also advance one of our strategic objectives, which is to advance safe and positive tennis experiences. We want people to have fun playing our sport. This is a great way for people to connect and interact. We can help grow our volunteer pipeline, but we can also help them grow their volunteer pipeline. They're always looking for bigs, right? There's shared objectives here. So we can utilize the programs that we have to mutually benefit both organizations. We can customize existing programs and resources that we have to help extend our reach within the communities. We can use our access to funding through Sport Canada to drive opportunities to the grassroots level. And we can utilize our resources with access to the participants and grow our sport and give them opportunities. And again, the foundation for this really is what's driving this from a data-informed lens, as well as that financial support piece. So as we began to deepen the conversation, and we talked about this yesterday at the University of Ottawa session, we see this call to action in the sessions presented earlier today, and no doubt through your talks tomorrow. We really want to refocus and change the narrative in sport and really promote this value-based sport approach. That's integral to everything we do at Tennis Canada, and it's ingrained in everything they do in Big Brothers, Big Sisters Toronto. So for that reason, we looked at the opportunities really around shared vision and values. And when we looked at the shared vision and values, we have the opportunity to break down barriers. On both sides, we can provide access to programming. It's going to benefit both of us, and it's part of our mandate and what we look to do. We had a shared vision around passion. There's opportunities for storytelling. Talked about it earlier. We all want to do it. We want to change the narrative, right? Sport is inherently good. Sport delivers positive benefits. This partnership is going to deliver incredible stories and opportunities to engage in that positive reframing narrative. Innovation. We're thinking outside the box. We're looking at partnerships that are not traditional in sport. We're driving these best practices. We're looking to establish where we can try something in a small group and then replicate it throughout the country if it works. So what did it look like from an investment perspective? First and foremost, we applied to Sport Canada with their Canadian or their community sport for all initiatives, and we received $75,000 to fund this pilot project. It was invested in this partnership with Big Brothers and Big Sisters and really supported the deliverables that were integral to what we were trying to do. We also looked at resources. Internally at Tennis Canada, we had to invest some of our human resources, as well as our court and certified coaches. So when we looked at this, we had certified instructors, we had who facilitated 2 try-it-day events. We also had a portion of the funding that was used to purchase rackets and balls. And the key here is sustainability. We wanted people to leave this try-it experience with the actual tools to continue it. Because fun fact about tennis, you don't always need a court. You need a racket and a ball. You don't even need someone to play with. You can play against a wall. You can play against an opponent. You can play it on a court. It's an accessible sport. So we wanted people to leave with an understanding of those basic skills of what you need to do to return the ball and the equipment to continue that piece. So that's the sustainability piece. Then we looked at our programs and networks, and we really wanted to look at what existing programs did we have and what existing channels did we have to tell these stories and promote our networks. And that was really important to us because we wanted to provide that exposure to both groups to show what we were doing. So what did it look like? And how did people feel about it? When we look at our participant outcomes, this is a survey that was developed by Big Brothers Big Sisters Toronto to look at the benefits of this participation. We ran 4 collaborative events, 2 try-it days, 1 experience where we provided an opportunity for bigs and littles to come to the WNBA game, so exposing not just tennis, but sport participation. And then we had an activation at National Bank Open. When we looked at this, it reached 140 bigs and littles from underserved communities. 72% left feeling that they had learned to play tennis. They had exposure to our sport. 89% felt motivated to try new things. That's a huge barrier, right? Especially on the female sport side. The confidence to pick up a racket and try something new in a safe and open environment. 94% of those people who participated, both on the bigs and the little side, felt confident taking this to the next level and trying something else that's new. Opening those doors, removing those barriers. 83% feel inspired to work hard and to reach their goals, so that motivation to continue and do better across not only their participation in tennis, but other activities. 94% had an interest in attending similar events in the future, so they had fun. They want to come back. It gave them something to do. And from our self-serving perspective, 72% wanted to play more tennis. So that was good for us. That's helping us deliver our goals. So as a result of this partnership and the 4 interactive events, here's where we ended up, This is the impact of this event and this opportunity. Partnership reach. Through the 4 collaborative initiatives, we reached, as I said, 140 bigs and littles from underserved communities. One of those communities we found out when we were talking to Big Brothers and Big Sisters Toronto was actually in our own backyard. Our offices are at the York University campus, which is in the Jane Finch neighborhood, which is an underserved community in the city of Toronto. It's a priority area for big brothers and big sisters. Natural connection, we're making a difference in the community in which we live and work. That's a huge bonus for us. When we look at the design considerations and opportunities, we provided these bigs and littles exposure to professional sport. It's fun to work in tennis right now. There's a lot of inspiration happening. When they went to the NBO, they had that opportunity. We had an opportunity for littles to participate in the coin toss before the match. We had them on courts. We had them out there. We had the opportunity to make those connections and that role modeling that we all know is important to continued participation in sport. We provided access to a girls and women only initiative. So the benefits of pulling in your director of women and girls advancement into helping with this project is you get to have other peripheral benefits. And what they did was one of those initiatives was a girls only camp where they had try-it tennis activities. But what they also did was they looked at bringing in an expert to work with the littles, the girls, around developing positive self-esteem and self-image. And at the same time, when they were in that workshop, they took all the bigs and they had like a community of practice discussion where it was an opportunity for those volunteers to have conversations about their challenges, their success, and realize that they're not alone in their experience and learn from each other and build that community within the community that they already had. It's not that Big Brothers and Big Sisters wasn't doing that already. We just provided an extra opportunity for that connection to happen naturally while providing that opportunity for the girls to have that additional lens of development. So that's the self-empowerment workshop. And again, as I said before, around that unique opportunity, that coin toss, having those littles, having we had a dedicated Big Brothers, Big Sisters Day at National Bank Open in Toronto. So we were able to provide that access, that media coverage, that opportunity to raise their brand awareness, which again, helped out the connection within the legacy piece. So what's the legacy of this one event and this one model? We built a foundation for sport literacy and gave them the tools to continue playing. We gave them that basic skill over that course of that workshop to learn how to play the basics of tennis. We gave them the racket, we gave them the balls, and we gave them access to continue to play. We created deeper connections between the bigs and the littles. In some cases, the bigs had never participated in tennis before, so they were learning at the same time as their littles, right? We all, the researchers in this room, know that there's something there, and that's important, right? So we were able to expand that and provide that opportunity and raise awareness for all of the great work that Big Brothers, Big Sisters Toronto is doing in our community. We had a link. You want to get involved? You want to be a big? Here's where you go. So we are able to generate that awareness within that community as well. What do you think? Did people enjoy it? Here are the testimonials. This is where I get goosebumps. I loved it. I want to do more and make more friends. One of our littles. One of our bigs said, I've never seen my little run before. This is such a great progress within her physical activity. A combo of little and big said, I learned to play tennis through these events and I love it now. We're going to play in our community with our new rackets. Thank you. This last one is huge. Big Brothers, this is from, just to set a little bit of background, this is from a Ukrainian grandmother, new Canadian, striving to make a connection. Big Brothers, Big Sisters Toronto saved my granddaughter's life. I am so grateful for your programs and loved watching my granddaughter play today. This was said directly to our Director of Women and Girls Advancement, Terry. While she spoke with the grandmother and they both looked over. She's hitting, she's smiling, she's laughing, and the grandmother said, We don't get to see that side of her often. This is impact with existing resources and not a lot of work, but not a lot of work when we consider the work that we all put into sport. We feel those connections. It becomes something that continues throughout. So what are the key takeaways from the work that we've done in this pilot project? Think outside the box. To grow and support our strategic objectives, look to community-serving groups. They may have programming gaps, lack of funding, or a funding pool that they can't unlock. And that's what happened with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. They had the intention, they had the research, but they couldn't unlock the funding, and we could. Leverage existing resources. We didn't start from scratch with this. We had the tournament. We had existing programming. We had access to coaches. We had access to space. We have over 400 courts in the GTA that now we can unlock with access to these people. So I challenge you to think about how can other organizations use your resources to create unconditional partnerships? How can you researchers in the room think about, okay, here's the research that I'm doing. What does it look like in action? Who is that partner that I can partner with that is unconventional and not that group that in sport, we go back to those leaders in those underserved groups and underserved communities so often. Where are we connecting in with our communities? And from an NSO level, where are we working with our provincial territorial tennis associations to unlock their clubs that are making a difference in their community? So think outside the box, leverage your resources differently. Make intentional and data-informed program design. We knew what they needed. We knew what we had. There was research there, but we didn't have the skills to do that. We looked to them for that. Don't underestimate the power of storytelling. I was part of the conversations with Eric's work with the University of Ottawa yesterday and that collective discussion around changing the narrative, having a different perspective, the power of telling the positive stories in sport. This unlocks a whole other aspect of it. And it's awesome. So now what? Brian asked you earlier at the end of the last session, now what? I ask you that as well. To me, it starts tomorrow. You're all going into roundtable discussions. You're all looking at what we do with all of the great work you're doing. The sports system needs to think differently. We need to reach out through our research partners. You, as research leaders, need to think differently. You need to make inroads. You need to think about how you're going to have that impact with the information you've unlocked in your research. We need to make a change, and you all can help resource the work that we're already doing. There is not infinite money in sport. There's not. The funding model hasn't changed. We have to think differently about our approach, and we have to be data informed in what we're doing. Get involved with your local environment, with your local government, understand with your provincial, territorial, and local sport clubs what they're doing and where those exemplars are, and help to develop that. For those researchers in the room that are thinking, okay, I need to know more. How do I get involved? How do I get deeper into this? First and foremost, get involved. Most of you in this room are involved in sport in some capacity, not just in academia, but challenge your students to get out there, volunteer at events, coach clubs, live what we're trying to research, because that's going to go deeper and that's going to unlock connections. Get out of your lane. We need to collaborate. We need to put research into action. Eric, Brian, all of the work that SCRI is doing, they're the gatekeepers of this information. We need to use them. We just said, call us. If you want to do an initiative and you need research to back it up, call SCRI, right? There's work there. We just need to actually ask those questions to develop these programs. Come together and think differently. Reimagine the partnerships. We're doing this across a number of initiatives. I'm going to shout out the University of Guelph. They're working with us to reimagine how we gather our participant data and we're looking at developing a participation survey. They understand research and how to interpret it and how to overlay it with everything. That's not what we do. And we're looking to Anne and her team to tell us what we need to do so we can gather the information. And then guess what? They're going to help us digest it and put it into action. That's partnerships. That's us working together collaboratively. Thanks, Anne. You're awesome. Minister Qualtrough said access to sport should be a human right. We all need to be part of this. So think about those who don't have access. Don't just scratch the surface. Turn all of this theory into action, and we together will achieve kind of where we want to go. So I hope my time's okay, but that's all I have. I didn't get the 1 minute mark, so I think I went okay.
Thank you very much. What an incredible example of the impact of sport in the community. I was really excited to find out I was working with Jen on this. So I'm not going to hold it up. Are questions in the audience or in Zoom? Katie in the back.
Caution everyone, I'm going to do my best to answer these questions, but I will dig deeper.
It won't be stats, Jen. Don't worry. Not coming from me. Thank you for that. That's great. I have a real interest in partnerships. So this is really interesting. I think probably lots of us are wondering, how are you sustaining the program? Like, what's going on? Are you working with local clubs? Are you working with other organizations? How did you go from sort of a one-day event to sustained partnership and sustained participation? Or has that actually happened?
So we're still unpacking all of this and figuring out what's next. We have applied for a second round of funding around how do we box this up and how do we kind of move this forward. It's not, there's still resources required, and we're trying to figure that out. So we know where we want to go between the passion of Leanne, Eva, and our team. We need to figure it out, and we're all committed, but that's the next. So I'll come back next year and tell you what we did next, or Eva can do that. But we do need to figure that out, but we have applied for another round of funding to figure out what this looks like and how do you replicate, rip off, and duplicate. And that's the one piece that I didn't say in my advice. Like, there's a lot of this great stuff out there, and that's where we want to just package it up. And, they have a Big Brothers Big Sisters is a national organization. So where can we do this? So we're working on it. Anyone know any funders that want to support this? We'll take it.
In the front here.
I really enjoyed the whole thing. It was great. What I'm thinking about is you encourage us to think outside of the box. In neuroscience, because I work in brain health and I try to apply everything to, physical activity and sport and diminishing screen time and everything. But one of the things that we know from neuroscience is that the giver gets more dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin than the receiver. So the next part of your research partnership, I think, needs to emphasize that, because I think a lot of the people that go into this helping with Big Brothers and Big Sisters are people who are they have challenges in their lives, but somehow it dawned on them that maybe helping someone else might help them. And so I'm thinking that it's two birds with one stone. You're not only helping this very young child, but it's an opportunity to help that person who's mending their broken wing, but that can really, really soar. So I just wanted to mention that. And if ever you need any help with that, I'm here.
Let's do that. No, absolutely. And I'll say, like, having lived all of these events and been there on site during NBO and at the WNBA game and having those conversations with the bigs, like, you're right. And it is so incredible to interact with them and see them getting as excited as the littles and making those connections for sure. And that's where, when we talk about that legacy, right? It's on both sides. They may decide to play tennis as well, right? That's a whole target group that we're trying to hit as well to grow our sport. So you're 100% right. And I would love to dig in, and I bet Leanne would be all over that as well. Not on her behalf. Yeah, no, we'll talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question. I thought I saw a hand up right behind you, Veronica.
Thanks a lot. So you encourage us to reimagine a lot. So I'm going to ask a hard question, because I think we need to be careful when we're reimagining that we're not reimagining in a way that's evangelical and like we're, solving all the problems. And so I'm wondering if you thought about how these kind of programs can be transformative in that they can address the actual social issues that put people in these situations. Because what I'm worried about is we're imagining how the sports system can do what municipal recreation was built to do, and that we just kind of systematically divested in. You use the language of, priority neighborhoods that's established by the City of Toronto based on ideas like access to library, access to community services. And so organizations like Big Brothers are really important, but they're a way that we've designed the private sector to fill gaps in our actual service provision because we're not taking care of our communities in those ways. And so I just worry that we're kind of recreating the same problems by putting too much, asking programs in the sports sector to do too much without addressing the actual issues. So I'm wondering if you've thought about that. How can programs be actually transformative, not just gap fillers, and then we pull more funding away from the other places that could do that? Sorry, big question, but I'm into the idea of
and it's a great question, and it's a long conversation, but here's what I'll say. This partnership, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Toronto, had a gap, have an established research-based program where they're delivering on initiatives prescribed by everything that you described. We're just one small slice of the work that they're doing, and we're just another option for the bigs to provide an experience for the littles. And really, in this piece, I can't speak to this from a research lens, but I can say that the amount of physical activity that the bigs are doing with the littles isn't a lot. And so this was a way to kind of take a small slice to say, here's how we get people more active. Right. And so I would almost say we're going to leave most of what you're saying to Big Brothers, Big Sisters Toronto, and we're going to show them how they can get people more active. So I'm kind of dodging it because it's a big question, but it is from my quick lens, it's but they're already doing all of these things. And we're just saying, here's one other thing you can do that's easy and accessible. And I got to wrap up, but we're introducing sport to a group that, to your earlier research, we're introducing sport to a group that doesn't have access to sport. And that's the work that we're doing. So to me, it's not addressing the social issues, but it is addressing the benefits of sport and recreation.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. I think we can see the excitement in the room having NSO up on podium. We've got the wrap-up sign, but Jen has agreed, of course, to stick around after to chat if anybody has any more sidebar conversations. And if there are questions on Zoom, I'm sure we can get them forwarded to Jen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
I'll just forward them along to the team. Thanks, everyone.